Hello and welcome to Awful Commentary, the podcast where we talk about father and son issues in popular culture. Today, oh my goodness, this is the one, David. This is the one that I have been waiting for months. But before we get into that, how are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing well. Tom.
I don't care, Dave. We're talking about the Mandalorian, and that takes no. Okay, calm down.
Did you just? It doesn't matter what your name is, me.
I would never. Okay, fine. How are you doing, Dave? Really, I mean this genuinely from my heart now. I'm not going to interrupt you again.
I can trust you, can I?
I promise.
Okay. I'm well, thank you, Dom. How are you?
I was burning to interrupt you then, but I didn't do it. I'm excited. I'm excited for this episode. It's been a long time coming. We had to build up, we had to wait for the season finale, but it's here. The season finale was the 18th of December. Today is the 19th of December. I woke up and got out of bed with a hangover to get downstairs to the TV before anyone else woke up, so no one would come down and go, I want to watch This Morning with, I don't know who does This Morning. Oh, Philip Schofield and Holly Willoughby. And I'm like, you better get the fuck out of here. Because, I love Holly Willoughby as much as the next person with a reasonable mind. But this is about the Mandalorian, so get out.
That was quite vitriolic. And I'm not sure if This Morning is on at the weekend, but I'm sure that's beside the point.
Holly Willoughby will be there whenever. No. I'm not going to get into this. This is not the Holly Willoughby podcast that I've always dreamed of starting. Where we just every episode talk about how she's just lovely, isn't she? She's gone from sex symbol to just lovely all round. Seems like just a really nice. This isn't the Holly Willoughby podcast, Dave. You stop it.
You're getting very easily derailed for someone who was so excited about this particular subject.
Well, my excitement carried me away to a galaxy far away. So
nice segue.
Thank you very much. We teased The Mandalorian a little bit last week with our fantastic rendition of the opening theme song.
It was fantastic, yeah.
Yeah, so we should lay it out. Obviously, the finale was just yesterday. So heads up, if you're listening to this when it comes out, spoilers. Go and watch the end of The Mandalorian before you listen, because we're not gonna hold back.
No, I'm not gonna hold back.
No. This is a no holes barred episode about the Mandalorian.
Spoilerific.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler laden. Spoiler filled. Spoiler stacked.
So I thought that today we would break this episode down into an extra segment that we normally we talk about the topic, and then we do a bit at the end where we say how does this relate to you and your father and stuff like that. But we're going to be talking about the first season of The Mandalorian and the second season of The Mandalorian. And so we're probably going to be jumping around a bit. But as is the season finale, and maybe some people have just clicked on this because they want to listen to some shit about The Mandalorian. I thought we could have a segment up top where we just nerd out and geek out. And then for 2 minutes where we just need to get it out of our system because we're excited, one of us more than the other, and we get it out, and then we dive into the Mandalorian and do the father and son relationship stuff that we usually do, and then we'll end with our traditional, how does this relate to you and your father stuff. So, again with the no holes barred.
Spoilers upcoming.
Spoilers upcoming. Geek out. Just get your geek out.
Oh my god. Boba Fett.
Oh, Luke Skywalker.
Oh. Gosh, Ahsoka. I mean...
mentioning Grand Admiral Thrawn. That was.
Well, I thought that would excite you more than I knew it would excite me.
Yeah.
But when Tamara Morrison appeared at the end of the first episode of season 2, I did a little wee, I think. And
were you aiming, or was it in your pants?
It was of course it's in my pants,
but
not a full evacuation, just a little bead that just came to the surface of my trouser.
Yeah. This is crass, by the way.
I disagree. That moment really made me giddy, and then I wasn't sure if they were going to pay it off. And then a few episodes later, when Slave One appeared, I was like, is that Slave One? That's Slave One, isn't it? I'm like tapping my girlfriend on the arm. I think that's Slave One. I think that's Slave One.
And it was.
And it was. Although I think due to the times, they don't really mention the name of his ship anymore. Yeah, maybe that's.
I don't think they ever mentioned it in the movie anyway. In Empire Strikes Back or Return of the Jedi.
No.
There's so much about Star Wars that's only known because of toys. And like merchandising, and like Lobot is another good example. Lando Calrissian's guy with the robot head.
Oh yeah.
You know, like the only reason I know he's called Lobot is because they had to make an action figure of him. So you know they gave him a name, and then like so much of Star Wars is
like
is
Salacious Crumb and Numb and all these really weird side characters they had to give names to for the toys. Yeah.
Yes.
Fair point.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's worth getting the fanboy geeking out nerd stuff up front, because the show isn't perfect, and so much of this series does end up falling into the fanboy hole of why was this there? Oh, it was there because we would get excited about it. And that's something that, as I've spoken about before, especially in terms of Indiana Jones, if you go back to our Indiana Jones episode, that's something that I am almost entirely against within movies and TV and storytelling these days. We
had to release that as a separate episode because you were ranted for so long about it.
Yes. So I don't need to do the same rant again now. There's a rant where I say how fanboy culture has essentially ruined cinema for a bit, and so it's good to kind of get that excitement out up front, because I think if we take, as we'll get back to this at the end of the conversation as well, inevitably, but if we take the appearance of Luke Skywalker in the series finale as our most fanboy moment, right?
Yeah.
Where I was super excited to see Luke Skywalker, of course, because it's Luke Skywalker. You know.
At what point in that sequence did you realise, or did you expect it to be Luke Skywalker?
When the X-Wing turned up.
As soon as it went past the window, you were like, that's Luke Skywalker.
Yes, because the only times we've seen an X-Wing is with the two older pilots, one of who was Dave Filoni, the creator of the show.
Yeah, it was.
So I expected either those two X-Wings to come in together, because they always fight together, they never came in solo. But the minute that it was a solo X-Wing, and I was watching it with my brother, and Harvey went, "Oh my god, it's going to be Ahsoka." And I was like, "Well, Ahsoka doesn't have an X-Wing." And there's only one person I know of who has an X-Wing.
It wouldn't make sense for it to be Ahsoka there, because we've already seen her, and she's already sent them away. So why would then she?
Well, this is I think part of the problem with the structure of the second series more than the first, is that they've, throughout the whole first season, the arc of the show is entirely dependent on the actions of the Mandalorian himself, right? And I know he's got a name like Din Djarin or whatever, but throughout the episode, we're going to call him the Mandalorian, and we're going to call him Pedro Pascal, and that's going to be it.
Or Mando. That's the only way to call him.
Yeah, so we're not going to call him Din Djarin or anything like that. But it's all about his actions as the protagonist, right? And our protagonist pushes the story forward. But when we get into the second season, it's much more... there's so many of the episodes are, here's Ahsoka from the animated show, here's Boba Fett, here's Luke Skywalker. That's like 3 episodes out of an 8-episode season, right?
Yeah.
Or of like, here's this stuff that you loved from before, there's a whole episode dedicated to it. And that is a flaw for me within the season that takes away from the integrity of the show. Because I'm not watching the show for Ahsoka to turn up. When Ahsoka does turn up, I'm like, that's great. I love Ahsoka. I love Clone Wars. I love Rebels. Like, when Ahsoka turns up, I'm like, awesome. But is she necessary for the show to function? No. Does she contribute to the show. Yes, she does in that episode, but then when Luke Skywalker turns up at the end of the series, it's like, why even bother having Ahsoka in that moment at all?
Yeah.
You know? And it doesn't... The arrival of Luke Skywalker negates the added element of having Ahsoka in there for providing that wisdom and that guidance and that... Like, or if all she was going to do was push him to Luke Skywalker, like, I'm sure they could have just set up... Like, they know the same people. They could have just set up a holo call and be like, hey, Luke, BT dubs, I've got a Baby Yoda here. Like, do you want him? You know, like...
Yeah.
And there's a lot of contrivance for the sake of the audience that this series is willing to make that the first season doesn't. The first season is like super focused on the Mandalorian. Yeah.
There is this actual real strange split that I didn't realise until you mentioned it between the first and second season, where all the characters in the first season are original.
Yeah.
And we don't have any of those callbacks to characters that we would recognise in the first season. It's only the second season and the very first episode where they tease you with the Marshal guy wearing Boba Fett's armour, and then you kind of see Tamara Morrison at the end, which again you're not going to recognise unless you know who Tamara Morrison is. So yeah, they definitely went in a different direction.
Yeah, and a lot of that I don't like. I'm not so much of a fan of that. Again, like I geeked out seeing Luke Skywalker, and I geeked out seeing Ahsoka, and all of that stuff was great. But did it take away from the Mandalorian himself? Yeah, I think in a lot of cases it did. And even
it takes a lot of agency away from. Maybe this is what you were getting at, but the whole first season was about him and how cool he was, and the decisions he made, and the conflicts he has. And you're right. The second season is kind of like him, just stepping between all these different instances where he's not the excitement anymore.
He's not the focus of the focus.
As if the audience would be bored of him already after one season instead of you know. I know this may be, I don't know how long this is going to go on for, but and this is obviously a bigger show in terms of scale than almost any other TV show that's come before it. So you can't really expect to go, well, there's going to be 6 seasons, so maybe it'll be him for 3, and then we need to shake it up by getting in some extra and more exciting characters. This could end up being the end of The Mandalorian. I think I don't know if it's going to be a 3rd season or not, but
I would be very happy if this was the end. But let's get into that when we get into the overall arc. You're just looking through the episodes. Episode 1, we get Timothy Olyphant, who is awesome as this new character. Yeah, but again, the focus is he has Boba Fett's armor, and we know it's Boba Fett, right? I'm willing to forgive that, because if Tamara Morrison didn't appear later, and that was our tease of like Boba Fett for this season, for example, I'd be like, cool, right? Like that's awesome. Then episode 2 is the brilliant episode with the frog lady on the ice planet, which is an amazing episode. I thought that was really like one of the highlights of the season. Episode 3 of the second season has Bo-Katan, who is Bo-Katan is from Clone Wars and Rebels, so they're reintroducing.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, well, that's why you need to go watch Clone Wars and Rebels. They're great.
No, I don't. I've got you as a friend, so I don't have to do any of these things. You can just tell me.
This is true, but they are both great series. But then we're introducing, this reintroducing this previously established character. Then the next one, they just go off for kind of no reason and do a side mission.
Side mission. They just because they have to kill some time while the ship gets repaired. And it's like, well, what can we do while we're here? Oh, let's bump into Gina Carano and Carl Weathers again and go on a little side quest just to kill some time, and then once that's over, we can carry on with the story.
Yeah, exactly. Again, fine, but it feels like a side quest. Then we get a Ahsoka Tano episode. Then we get Boba Fett himself is back. Then we get the Bill Burr episode. Again, that one was pretty solid. And then the final one, we have everyone's there. We're all here. Jabba's palace is here. Luke Skywalker's here. And yeah, there's a lot of, I think, where this show is just throwing shit at the audience, right? And yeah, I lose some respect for the show from that. It doesn't mean I didn't enjoy it. I did enjoy it, but yeah, it loses its integrity to hold itself up, because the whole point was supposed to be, this is a guy who exists just in the universe and goes around doing this, doing his grimy underworld thing, and then suddenly so much responsibility is heaped onto him that he doesn't know how to handle it. But it was supposed to continue into this, explore the universe, and then within 16 episodes Luke Skywalker's there.
Yeah.
Like, it didn't really take them that long to introduce one of the main antagonists from The Empire Strikes Back in Boba Fett. Like, he was in there by episode 9, and then Luke Skywalker is there by episode 16. It's like they weren't. You could just imagine the people at Disney just like holding their trousers, like, come on, come on. When are you gonna let us?
Spooge.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Do you have any thoughts on that before we get into the show itself?
Only that I didn't mind it. That what you're saying about, just throwing all of this Star Wars crap at the audience, going, recognize this, do you remember how much you love this? Now we've got it. That kind of thing can be really tiresome if it's handled poorly. But in The Mandalorian, I don't feel like it's handled poorly. I think it's handled quite well. And the only time where it felt a little bit cheap and almost unnecessary was with Luke Skywalker.
Yeah.
When he came, I was happy to see him, and it gave a bit of service to him and his legacy in the same way that Rogue One gave a bit of weight to the legacy of Darth Vader. Because with Darth Vader, we're told how badass and amazing he is, and unless you've gone back and played some of the games or read some of the books or the comic series that you introduced me to, you don't really have much of a visual representation of that in the films that have happened. So that one sequence in Rogue One, that sequence in Rogue One did for me what the first few MCU movies did for me, which was made me so excited that I couldn't sit still, and I was just giddy like a child, like seeing my childhood dreams and fantasies come to fruition on screen. And over the MCU that faded because that it was new once, and then it just you're just getting more of the same, and I enjoy them all anyway. But with Darth Vader, it was like, I like an anti-hero, I like a villain. So getting to see Darth Vader cut loose and fuck dudes up in a terrifying, visceral way, I thought was great service to his character and his legacy. So, and in this instance, it was nice to see why Luke Skywalker became so revered in the galaxy following Return of the Jedi, where he's still kind of at the beginning of his journey. If we're just talking about the movies, and then he's picked up again in the new trilogy, and people are like, holy shit, it's Luke Skywalker. You're kind of like, well, why? What's he done that which made him so revered? And we get bits and pieces of it in flashback and stuff in the new trilogy, but it was nice to see him, be an awesome Jedi.
Yeah, yeah.
And be completely in control. And you can say what you want, I suppose, about the the CGI. It was I find with these new like full face CGI things, if you look at their mouths, you'll ruin it for yourself. You've got to look them in the eyes. Just look them in the eyes and let your peripheral vision pick up the way their mouths move, and you'll enjoy it more. That's my advice to anyone. If you're going to see, with Princess Leia and
Grand Moff Tarkin.
Grand Moff Tarkin, I thought was one of the best examples I can think of in a long time. That did not bother me at all.
Wow.
If you're going to watch Justice League, don't look at Henry Cavill's mouth, or just don't watch Justice League, or just fast forward to all the good bits. Anytime Wonder Woman's there on her own, or Jason Momoa, watch those bits, and then you can just ignore the rest. It's fine. But Luke Skywalker felt a little bit cheap, but I still enjoyed it as a fan. I was kind of glad he was there, even if it didn't make me giddy, didn't make me excited, like when Boba Fett did. And incorporating Boba Fett for me was a bit like these two examples where it felt it served his legacy, because it's been talked about for decades now. Like, why is Boba Fett so badass when all we ever see him do in the movies is kind of look a bit badass, say a couple of badass lines, and then get eaten by the Sarlacc? And things like Robot Chicken do a great job of like trying to take the mick out of that whole legacy. Um, so it's really, yeah, again, it was just cool to see him there and do badass things and be badass and be like, yeah, of course Boba Fett could take out all these guys, and of course he would do all this and that, because we expect that from him, even if we've never seen it before. So I really enjoyed that, and getting Tamara Morrison back.
Yeah.
Oh, I love him so much.
Yeah, I think this is a great place for us to kind of get into the conversation about the Mandalorian and the father and son stuff itself, because one of the things I really love about this series, and one of the reasons I think this is probably the best piece of Star Wars content since The Empire Strikes Back. I don't think there's been many better bits of Star Wars storytelling of a higher quality than The Mandalorian since Empire Strikes Back. Is the way that it fully integrates the universe of Star Wars. Because one of the problems with when you look at, let's say you decide to watch episodes 4, 5, and 6, and then 1, 2, and 3, right, in release order. You watch the old movies and you have this weathered, lived-in universe. Then you go back to the prequel movies and it's all shiny and bright and reflective surfaces and computer-generated characters, and all of like the use of models has been replaced with Jar Jar Binks, like this CGI. Even Yoda has been replaced as a computer character. And it becomes very difficult within your mind to integrate those two worlds together, right? Like, A New Hope does not sit in the same setting as super battle droids and Gungans with giant flappy ears, right? Like, the worlds don't meld well together in visually or spiritually, I think. They really try at the end of Revenge of the Sith to be like, and now you see, this is the same, it's going into A New Hope now, but they really fucking try, and it doesn't work for me. Whereas the Mandalorian does a fucking perfect job of that. There are constant bits of prequels and the original movies like thrown together. They look good together. It feels like the original Star Wars movies 100 times more than the J.J. Abrams films do. The J.J. Abrams films are trying to be like, see, this is Star Wars again. But it doesn't feel like Star Wars. It might feel like the world of Star Wars, but it doesn't have that, the heart, I think, that the original movies do. And I think The Mandalorian does a great job of feeling like you are in the galaxy, and then being like, hey, you're on Tatooine, so you know that stuff from Luke Skywalker. Well, now here's some pit droids. Right?
Yeah.
These old, worn-down pit... And then it's like... one thing my brother noticed when we watched the episode with Timothy Oliphant was Timothy Oliphant's speeder was like an old pod racing engine.
Yeah, half a pod racer, yeah.
Yeah,
great.
that had been retrofitted. And even introducing the Mandalorian, where we first see him with his father and with his mother as well. When his family are killed, they're killed by the battle droids, right? From the prequels, and then we transfer from his life in the prequels, when his family are murdered by battle droids, to him being surrounded by stormtroopers, and it feels like this is the same galaxy. It doesn't feel like, oh, these things are at odds with each other. I think the show does an amazing job of bringing those things together in a convincing way, in a way that feels like, but this is Star Wars. It's both the old Star Wars and the newer Star Wars, and they sit comfortably together.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. I think that so much of that comes down to both the writing and the passion behind it. Because you can talk, you and I would have a long disagreeing conversation about how the new trilogy doesn't feel like Star Wars. Because I think it's a good thing that we have a different view on that, and anyone who's listening might be like, oh, awful commentary, thinks that the new trilogy doesn't feel like Star Wars. I do. Dom doesn't. That's fine. Discussion for another time. And I've forgotten what I was going to say. because I got sidetracked by that. What were you just saying?
I was saying
Quick.
how the Mandalorian integrates the two universes together in a convincing way. Yeah.
Yes, that part of what you said, I do completely agree with. And yes, because I was going to say, Jon Favreau has come into this with a huge degree of passion and love for Star Wars. And the same way that J.J. Abrams did and didn't want to do for so long, because he was afraid that he wouldn't do a good job because he loved it too much, and eventually came back and blah, blah, blah. Jon Favreau's done that, and he's been really smart about it and not gone, so I'm just going to spooge all my dreams all over the screen. He's gone, I'm going to talk to the person who knows the most about Star Wars in the whole world, which is Dave Filoni, who's also been one of the best creators of Star Wars content since Star Wars began. So much can be said about the writing, the storytelling of it in that regard, and I think an awful lot of credit needs to go to the technology that exists these days too. Mm-hmm. If it's a matter of whether these visually feel like you're in Star Wars, it's because the technology is there to make it work. And you're right about why the prequels didn't really feel like that, is because it was blue screen, green screen, CGI models, and something I do like about the new, they returned back to the way of animatronics and practical effects for the new trilogy, and they do that a lot in The Mandalorian too, which I think really does help. It seems odd, but I'd rather see aliens and robots that look like they're actually there than even as far as we've come with technology. Yeah. Physical beings, yeah, you can just tell. As far as we have come with CGI, you can always point out what parts of a scene are CGI and what parts are practical. But with I don't know how much you know about the set, the sort of massive light screens that they shoot on, but if anyone has a chance to look on the behind the scenes stuff, it's so fucking cool, and it looks absolutely incredible, and it's the future of filmmaking. Green screen, blue screen hopefully will be gone forever if this exists and is prevalent in the industry. But having the right people behind it, I think it's immediately steps. You step. I'm not trying to talk Star Wars right now. I just can't get my words out.
I thought I was in the Mos Eisley Cantina.
We don't serve your kind here. Sorry, I've cut deep into Dom's droid history. It's family ties. Yeah, so you start from an amazing place, great people behind it, getting the right minds and creative people there, and then you kind of, it's harder to go wrong in that respect. So I think great props go to, and if anyone has not yet, the gallery series on Disney Plus is a great way of finding out how they kind of brought all these people together and the kind of minds that were involved, because it wasn't just one man's vision. This wasn't George Lucas going, hey, do you know that trilogy I did in the 70s and 80s that was really popular? I want to do it again. And all the money people being like, all right, George, fuck, here's hundreds of millions of dollars. And no one is there to go, there was no one shackling George Lucas at all to maybe tone it down or bring it back. And trade disputes, are you sure? So yeah, great props to the way this was done in the first place.
Yeah, definitely. All right, let's do it. Fathers and sons within the Mandalorian. So if we go through I think it's a good idea to follow the arc of Baby Yoda, the child, Grogu, and the Mandalorian himself. But when do you feel that the father and son bond first starts to develop? Because they encounter each other at the end of the first episode, where the Mandalorian, of course, has been sent there to take him as a bounty for Werner Herzog as the best Imperial officer in the history of...
Absolutely.
And in all, I think it's him and Peter Cushing for by somehow encompassing everything that the Empire should be in Werner Herzog's performance, which is ridiculous because it's Werner Herzog.
I know, but he's so great at that.
He's just, yeah. And Werner Herzog has tasked the Mandalorian with capturing Baby Yoda that he doesn't know, and he destroys, he kills IG-11, the droid in order to save Baby Yoda the first time he sees him, rather than
The Taika Waititi droid.
Yes, indeed. And then we get with the second episode, he returns the bounty, but then the third episode he returns the bounty. The second one that we have the Jawa interlude, where we discover that Baby Yoda has those Force powers. Yeah. And then the third episode he returns the bounty and then regrets it instantly. Knows that he's episode 3 is called The Sin, and he can feel it inside himself when he does the deal. That although he has a code, as a bounty hunter, he has a code, that he's crossed a line here, and that his professional code and his moral code are now at odds with one another.
Yeah.
And yeah,
it's like Leon, the Luc Besson movie. Do you remember? Like No Women, No Kids.
Good.
That's what turns him over the line. Yeah, that's a great movie.
Yeah. But where do you feel that the father and son relationship starts to build between the Mandalorian and Baby Yoda himself? I'm going to call him Baby Yoda because he's colloquially known as in popular culture as Baby Yoda. No one's like, oh, I love Grogu. I want a Grogu action figure. Everyone's like, I want Baby Yoda.
I don't know. There's a woman in my office who loves the Mandalorian, and all she wants is a Grogu action figure.
Oh well, I take it back then. Maybe I'm out of touch. But do you feel that when he goes to rescue Baby Yoda, that is the start of it, or is that just him trying to make up for his own moral lapses?
I think it's where you pointed out this episode's called The Sin, and I think when he goes to rescue Baby Yoda, it's just to try and ease his conscience a bit. I don't feel like he has any love for the child at this point. It's just he regrets, like he said, he regrets what he does, and he wants to rectify it. So I don't think any kind of father and son thing kind of starts there. No.
Yeah, I think it really starts to kick in episode 4, which is the sanctuary, where they go to the forest planet with these people who are like fishing in pools. It's kind of weird, but this is where we first meet Gina Carano, and it's the introduction of a recurring storytelling motif within the Mandalorian series itself, which is we're doing the A-Team. We're doing kung fu. We're doing this old school lone wolf and cub, which is something we'll come back and discuss in another episode for sure, because it's clearly a huge influence. The Incredible Hulk TV series. The wandering hero appears into the town, but the town is under threat, and the hero is the only one who can protect it.
Yeah,
from
it's the man with no name.
Threat.
Clint Eastwood, spaghetti western deal. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, very much so. And so we go to this small village, and they're being attacked by dog-faced raiders, and the Mandalorian and Gina Carano are the only two that could possibly protect these people and protect the village. But outside of that larger looming threat, the cool, monstrous AT-ST that appears and really, really looks spectacular in that episode. It's a very character-driven episode, this one. Like, do you remember watching it and how you felt about it?
I do, yeah. I don't, and my feelings aren't all positive. This episode for me was the start of a bit of the slump, the mid-season slump for the season 1. First 3 episodes I was really engaged, and I felt like then the middle 3 episodes were a bit, I don't know, filler. A bit like side questy, and at the end of Sanctuary, during the episode 4 Sanctuary, I was thinking, this is like an episode of Stargate SG-1. It didn't feel super necessary to me until you start to get a bit more of the backstory of the Mandalorian, and I think that's the episode where he talks about him being a foundling and his family being killed and blah blah blah, and he gets quite close with a woman who lives on this farm, and maybe this is the beginning of the sort of the bond between him and the child, because he comes close to leaving the child there with these people and letting them raise him, but matters are kind of taken out of his hands because a bounty hunter's tracked him there, hasn't he? Because he's broken the bounty hunter code. Now bounty hunters are after him. He's fair game. So he can't leave the child there, but you do get a sense that he's not really sure whether he should. Like, it feels like a good place to leave him. These people seem like decent people, but maybe he doesn't want to get rid of him. Maybe he wants to keep him. But I think these episodes in the middle here, were okay. No, I feel like season 1. Okay, let me just formulate my thoughts.
I'm going to summarize what you're saying for you.
Okay,
because I know what you're thinking. Okay, episodes 4, 5, and 6 are very much we can't just pad. We have to pad because we can't jump straight to the end of this series, right? They have to go on adventures together. It's the Act 2 problem of Act 1, we set up the conflict. Act 3, we resolve the conflict. So Act 2 has to be the journey that mounts up to the conclusion. But these 4, 5, and 6 don't do a fantastic job of raising the stakes in the main story. Instead, it's how can we weave an Act 2 rather than this is the clear path towards the conclusion of the series, right? These 3 episodes don't feel like we're building the story of the Mandalorian. They feel like, and then the Mandalorian rescues a town. And then the Mandalorian does a bounty hunting thing. And then the Mandalorian goes onto a prison ship and with Bill Burr, right? It's not like a raising of the stakes. It's not like, oh, now Darth Vader's after them and they've got to keep hopping from one place to the next, for example, right? I think out of these 3 episodes, so that's episode 4, 5, and 6, so Sanctuary, the Gunslinger, and the Prisoner, I think episode 4 does the best job of feeling like it's within the events of season 1. Because I think you could watch episode 5 where he goes back to Tatooine and does a bounty hunting thing and meets Ming-Na Wen, my favourite actress maybe in the world. And episode 6 with Bill Burr. Somebody could say, oh, is The Mandalorian any good? Like, show me an episode. You go, oh, I'll show you these ones, because you don't have to have seen episodes 1, 2, 3, 4, really. You just have to know BT Dubs as a Baby Yoda. But episode 4, Sanctuary, does the best job, I think, because there's a bit at the end when he saves the village, and the widow, they've got a thing going on. Okay, like we all know they're DTF when they get the chance. But even with the helmet on, right? Like no one's fussy. No one's fussy here.
No, you got to keep the helmet. Nothing but the helmet.
Nothing. Yeah. But there's a bit at the end of that episode where she says, "You and your boy can stay here together."
Yeah.
Right. You can settle down into the village, and she refers to Baby Yoda as your boy, and this is the first time I think where the series forms that bond between them, right? That says this is not just a burden for him anymore. This isn't just, oh, I fucked up and I want to go and save my pet. This is actually caring for him and caring for each other, and a sense of responsibility that goes beyond, oh, I did a bad thing here. And I think that's why this episode is the best one of those 3, that mid-season slump, as you say.
You're probably right, because I did feel like after the first 3 episodes, this one did kind of take the wind out of me a little bit. And I was like, oh, okay, I thought we were on this amazing adventure together, and now we're just dicking around on a farm. Okay. And then so the next 2 kind of plateaued that for me. Until it comes back up at the end. But yeah, you're probably right. This one does a better job of being involved with the story, because I think you did summarize me very well. In saying,
I know you.
You do. So because the overarching story is what I found most interesting. So, and you're right. These 3 episodes kind of just took us away from the real crux of what is happening in the galaxy right now, and that's what I was more interested in. Yeah.
Do you
But,
find
yeah,
it?
Bill Burr.
Do you find it? Do you, yeah, we'll get back to Bill Burr at some point. But do you find it believable when the Mandalorian starts to take on these fatherly emotions? I guess when he starts to act more like a father, less like a childminder, like Vin Diesel in The Babysitter, whatever it's called.
What was that film called?
What's that movie called? Where The Pacifier?
The Pacifier.
Where
That's exactly
the Vin
right.
Diesel has like a bandolier full of milk bottles, and you're thinking that's a bad idea because that milk's, firstly, it's warm, right? It's going to be heated by the
heat that emanates off of Vin Diesel's pecs.
Of Vin Diesel, yeah. So he's going to give it to this baby. This baby's going to be like, it's turned. It's turned, Vin Diesel. You're a bad pacifier. Anyway, sorry. Slightly off topic.
You did.
Yes.
That was an interesting right turn you took there, but good memory
But
at least for
Yeah, but
obscure Vin Diesel movies.
that I've never seen. But do you...
do I believe that? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I do, but I think it's because through what happens at the beginning, where he does realise that he's overstepped a mark here with giving the child over to Werner Herzog. You do get a sense of conflict within him that seems to come from a place of not just of that the life that he has, this kind of violent life, just working for whatever job he's given, cash in hand kind of jobs, don't always sit well with him, and he's got no great reason to give a shit about what the Empire are going to do to a kid. Really, like, he knows that this sort of mangled, rotten version of the Empire is around, and they're probably all doing nefarious shit. So the fact that he's just stumbled into one, I don't know. But there are red flags everywhere, I guess, with what they're doing with this kid seems a bit shady, and how much they're willing to pay him for it. It's all a bit much. So, but and then we get a bit of a sense of his own story. It did seem to me that he's not at peace. Even before the events of episode 1, you feel like this is something of a salve, a balm to him, something that he can be attached to and have some connection with. You feel like he's lived a cold life, and he maybe craves for something more. And I think you get a bit of a sense of that when he goes to see that Mandalorian enclave, where the armorer is, and none of the other Mandalorians seem to really like him or take him very seriously. So even amongst, because of his history, they don't see him as a real Mandalorian. So at least in terms of from a story perspective, I felt like he needed it. He needed the child. He needed something different.
Yes, yeah, because he's a foundling, he doesn't belong to a particular clan of Mandalorians. And that's when he eventually gets his sigil and the Mudhorn, which is the monster that Baby Yoda helps him kill, the giant rhino, hairy rhino thing. And they become a clan of 2, I think they say.
Yeah.
So this whole time, he's a warrior, a lone warrior, this classic Clint Eastwood thing, but completely without connection. He doesn't have the familial bond of a clan like different Mandalorian clans, maybe like Fett or Clan Ordo, or these different Clan Vizsla and all of these different things. Like when we see Bo-Katan later in season 2, she's traveling with other Mandalorians, and together they have that brothers in a camaraderie and familial bond that he just doesn't have. He is completely on his own. I think one of the things that is really brilliant about the show is, and that isn't spoken about too much, is the directing itself. And each director does a great job of using tricks where your 2 main characters who are sharing a father and son bond, and we need to see this bond grow. One of them is wearing a helmet so you can never see his face, and the other one's a fucking puppet.
Yeah.
And only one of them can talk, and is a man of few words. right? It's not like we're watching Han Solo and Chewbacca, where Chewbacca has the expressive the actions of Peter Mayhew, and Han Solo doesn't shut up, right? It's like you've got Boba Fett and Chewbacca, and you can't understand one of them, and the other one doesn't say anything through the whole thing. I think one of the great ways they overcome that is by introducing objects that the camera can look at and then cut to a character and look at longingly. And it's one of the secrets to the directing that I've noticed now that I've watched it a bunch of times, is action, reaction from Baby Yoda, and reaction of zooming in on the Mandalorian's face mask to be like, oh, he's feeling emotional. You can't see it, but he's feeling emotional, right? And it either zooms in close to his face in like a whoa way, or he just stares looking at the same thing for about 30 seconds, and you know he's emotional because he hasn't looked away. And that's pretty much it. So an example is the little ball on top of his gear stick, essentially.
I'm sure that's what it does. He's shifting gears.
He's shifting gears, or going into hyperspace or whatever, and it's got a little screw-on ball at the top, and Baby Yoda wants to unscrew it and play with the ball, and he keeps screwing it back on, but then it becomes a recurring object of affection between them. So you don't need to see their face to understand the relationship that's going on between them, because you've introduced this third object. And I think it might be at the end of episode 3, actually, where they escape from Werner Herzog, and the Mandalorian unscrews it and gives it to Baby Yoda and says, this is, look after this kind of thing. Like, gives him a toy, something to, we see that there is, this relationship between them. And it's really tough to build a father and son relationship between a man who has no face and a puppet. But by using these extra, like either a third person in their relationship to highlight their dynamic, or a third object, it creates a relationship that you believe, even though you never get to see them look each other in the eye. It's pretty amazing. It's pretty well done, I think.
Yeah, that's a great point. They must, I wonder if that's something that Favreau and the directors sit around and discussed, or whether he just goes, do what you need to do to show this stuff. Because it does use recurring directors, doesn't he? Especially in the first season, where it's like 3, Dave Filoni, Rick Fukuyi, Famuyiwa, and then Deborah Chow, and then you get the Bryce Dallas Howard episode, which is the Sanctuary, and then the original 3 recur. Before Taika Waititi directs the finale. So I wonder if there was like in that gallery series on Disney Plus, where they all sit around a table to discuss, obviously for the purposes of this show. But I wonder if there was that kind of discussion between all of them in the beginning, where they all go, let's all agree on ways we're going to do this. Because it does seem to repeat throughout the series, like you say, they have a way of doing it, and it would feel very fractured if every director chose a different way of displaying that. But it seems like they did all agree on something.
Yeah, I think that's the benefit of having Jon Favreau in such an important role as kind of lead writer, and then his relationship with Dave Filoni. In crafting this situation. I think they do a really great job of it. And another example is in the end of the season, of the first season. They've returned back to their original planet, back to Werner Herzog, because Werner Herzog's been hunting them the whole time, been sending bounty hunters after them. The Mandalorian and Baby Yoda escaped into the galaxy. They were on the run, but Werner Herzog is relentless, and we'll kind of get more into that in a minute. But at the end of the final episode, the Mandalorian has like a necklace with the Mandalorian sigil on it, like the big beast with the tusks.
The one that we were going to get a tattoo of at university, but never did.
Yes, exactly that one. Yes, that's right. And he gives the necklace to Baby Yoda to be, because he thinks maybe he's not going to make it out of this, And he says, give this to another Mandalorian, and they will know to take care of you, like that. But at the end, the Baby Yoda has the necklace and puts it in his mouth because he's, a big pervert. And we have that moment where he says, "Oh, you keep it." He says it's about the necklace. You keep the necklace, right? And he's giving part of himself and his heritage to this child, and they are a clan together now.
And the child is a foundling, just like he was.
Yeah, and it's really great how they've used those visual cues to build that relationship. Because I remember years ago I was talking to someone about Halo, the Xbox game, and for years they've said, "Oh, we're going to make a Halo TV show or a Halo movie," and they've never done it. But one of the people I was speaking about it like 10 years ago said the reason they don't do it is because the reason that Sylvester Stallone Judge Dredd had been so poorly received is because you can't do a movie where you never see the person express their emotions. Right? It can't be done. You need to see your protagonist to understand their feelings. And then Carl Urban came in with his Dredd movie and that movie's fucking awesome. But Dredd is a character who doesn't express many emotions other than anger. So then when you transition over to The Mandalorian, how do you build empathy between a puppet and a man that you can't see? And the directing plays a really important role within that here, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's keep going with the first season as it is. Were there any highlights for you between Baby Yoda and the Mandalorian in the rest of that first season?
I don't remember, man. That's ages ago. Highlights between the two. No, I don't remember.
The Bill Burr episode.
I'm terrible. I could have done a lot more research, obviously.
No, the Bill Burr episode, we don't see much between them because most of the focus is on the Mandalorian himself. Baby Yoda fights that robot voiced by everyone's favourite TV travel man.
Richard Ayoade. Yeah, he is my favourite TV travel man. He's my favourite in a lot of categories, actually.
Yeah,
I do love him in a disproportionate amount.
Yes, but we get a great bit where Bill Burr finds Baby Yoda and is like, "Oh, I've never wanted a pet before, but now I'm looking at this and I think I want this one as my pet." And the Mandalorian has been trying really hard to not start a fight between these people, but they just keep pushing him, and you've got Clancy Brown as the giant devil guy, and the awesome Twi'lek lady from Game of Thrones is
Did
there
you like
as well.
her? The Twi'leks in that episode just ruined the whole episode for me. I found them very irritating.
Is the problem with Star Wars aliens, I think.
Isn't the girl Twi'lek, what's her name, from Tonks from Harry Potter?
I have no idea. I don't know. She's in Game of Thrones. She's like the wildling nanny for the Stark kids.
Is she? Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got no idea.
I'm sure we're talking about the same person, but
maybe. Who knows?
I don't know who Tonk is.
Natalia Tina, the English actress who was she was the Twi'lek in The Prisoner, and she plays Tonks, Nymphadora Tonks in Harry Potter. I was right.
Okay.
Not that anyone
thank
cares.
God. Thank God for Nymphadora Tonks.
She was fine in Harry Potter. I didn't like her. I didn't like her much, and because this episode 6, The Prisoner, I was really looking forward to because I knew Bill Burr was going to be in it, and Bill Burr is great in that episode. And Clancy Brown, every time I see Clancy Brown, I'm like, cool, it's Clancy Brown. That's great.
Clancy Brown.
I love him.
Yeah.
And then the Twi'lek characters just... I think that episode wouldn't have been such a low point in the series, following on from the Gunslinger, which I also found the main sub-character, the rookie bounty hunter guy, I found him really annoying. So there's 2 characters in a row, episodes in a row with characters that just completely ruined the whole episode for me. And I'm like... Could that been fixed with better casting, or are they just written to be annoying? I don't know. But I'm kind of glad they occurred next to each other, so that it could be a kind of reverse arc, starting high, dropping, and then shooting back up for the end. Because the last 2 episodes I did really enjoy.
Yeah. But what about Baby Yoda in these episodes?
I don't really remember. But then it's interesting that you mentioned about Bill Burr's character Mayfeld calling the child a pet, because as we've been talking, I was trying to remember when I really did feel like you could put a name onto how the Mandalorian feels about Baby Yoda, and I didn't really feel like there was on like the love spectrum. I felt like in the first half of the series, he is just like, this is a helpless little creature that I need to look after.
I'm its guardian.
Its guardian, yeah. And so it is kind of like just looking after a pet. So at what point, I'm trying to think, what point to me did that transcend just a sense of responsibility over a more vulnerable creature, and when did it become this child is part of my family now?
And did you settle on something?
I think it was when the moment you mentioned about with the Mandalorian necklace. I mean, that's kind of the perfect visual, as you've already pointed out, of where it hands over. So I think that is the point where it the stakes are increased even further. Again, because now he's not just looking after a helpless little creature that can't look after itself. It's his family, and he's going to give his life to save it.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. That's definitely true. And those relationships where the stakes are Baby Yoda, those episodes tend to be stronger than the ones where the stake is, but what about this town? Because the problem with the episodes of like, what about this town or what about this prisoner, is the Mandalorian doesn't really care about them. What he cares about is Baby Yoda. So the episodes where he's forced to care about something else because, we're only going to give you the armor if you help us fight this crate dragon. It's like, okay, it's a means to an end, right? And we feel within him it's a means to an end. But those episodes where it is like, my son is in danger now, those are the ones where the show really does shine, I think. What did you think about the finale of season 1 then, when we get Apollo Creed calls him up and and is like, if you help me get rid of these Imperials, then I will remove the bounty on you, and you and the child will be free from the hunters. But it's a trap. It's a trap, of course. Yeah,
of course it is. I found there were some real emotional moments in those last two episodes where Quill, the little Ugnaught voiced by Nick Nolte, and he's reprogrammed the IG-11 droid that the Mando killed at the beginning of the series, voiced by Taika Waititi, to be kind of like a protector droid for the child. And Mando doesn't trust him. Doesn't trust that this clearly genius engineer, inventor, repair guy could do this, and is very reluctant to give the child over. Because
droids killed his family, as we see that flashback from the prequels. His family were murdered by the droids, and he doesn't trust throughout the whole series, like with Richard Ayoade as well. He does not trust that droids. They have no heart, they have no soul. They will only act on their programming, and their programming is rarely, it's normally malevolent, I guess you could say.
Yeah, he's got a real prejudice. Because like I said, there was battle droids who killed his family, the things that are designed to kill, and IG-11 is an assassin droid, which is designed to kill, and it's going to end when they have to team up, don't they, to get their bounty in the first episode, which turns out to be the child, and the droid is about to go ahead and complete their job, which is to kill it. Or he's got a different job, hasn't he, I think, to kill the thing, and that's when Mando kills the droid instead. But when they give the child over to Quill, whilst sort of to get him away and get him back to the ship, and he's being chased by scout troopers, that was tense. I was like, come on! And then when they kill him, it hurt. I love that character. Yeah. I have spoken. Is that what he says? Something like that. He's got a little catchphrase.
Yeah, I have spoken. Yeah.
I have spoken, yeah. Don't try and use that on your girlfriend, by the way, for anyone listening. It's not great It doesn't often work, and it might get you in trouble. But yeah, to have I feel like we're kind of on that journey with the Mandalorian in not trusting IG-11 completely. They kind of it's probably intentional that they try and keep that tension going of going, maybe it's going to betray them, maybe it's going to kill instead of protect the child. And when they kind of find themselves in a position where they're on like a boat in a lava river, trying to escape from that standoff they've had with Moff Gideon and all the Imperials. And at the end of this tunnel, there are tons of stormtroopers waiting for them, and there's no way out. And IG-11 does a Dante's Peak, walks through the lava, and does self-destruct and just blows all of the stormtroopers away. And even up till that point, I don't think the Mandalorian still even trusts it then. It's only once it sacrifices itself to save everybody that it's like, you know what? You're okay, IG-11. You've exploded now, but you know what? But you're okay. Because there's a moment just before where they manage to get out of that little cantina where they're pinned down by Moff Gideon, because IG-11 shows up and starts gunning people down and sort of gets them out of there. Carl Weathers and Gina Carano get out, but the Mando's been injured and he needs help. So, and IG-11 goes to tend to him because it's been reprogrammed as this. I keep calling it the babysitter droid when I was watching it, but to be helpful,
a nurse droid.
I guess. A nurse droid, is that what they call it? Yeah, nurse droid. So he wants to help mend Mando, and he wants to take his helmet off. And that's actually, I suppose, that moment where the Mandalorian chooses to take his helmet off for the first time in the series, the first time we get to see Pedro Pascal's lovely face. It left me questioning whether that was the moment where he decides he's going to trust him or not, or whether that's the moment where he goes, it's just a droid, like it doesn't count. It's like Richard Herring always says, is it cheating if you sleep with a sex robot?
Right.
If it's a robot, does it count? I don't know. But yeah, that's a nice, I think that maybe that is a nice moment where we get to see Mando soften a little bit to this droid.
Yeah, and also I think if it wasn't for the journey he's been on with Baby Yoda, he would have died in that moment.
Yeah, because IG had saved them in the moment before.
Yeah, but he would have. The character goes from being uncompromising at the beginning to someone who is willing to do what it takes to protect the child as well.
Yeah, someone who's as committed to it as he is.
And he's gone from being stuck very much to his own code, this kind of religious dogma, to, as we see at the end of season 2, he's essentially overcome that completely by the end of season 2. His journey with Baby Yoda has transformed him from a man stuck to a particular set of rules that he has to live by to someone who is more compassionate and is willing to bend those rules.
Yeah. Well, he has that whole conversation with Mayfeld in season 2 about how the two of them are not that dissimilar in that sure they seem to have a code, but when it serves them, they will bend it. Just like last week, if anyone can hear my dogs barking now, it's fine. Don't worry, someone's just come to the door, and they're defending my honor and my castle.
That's good. Yeah, that
is good. Hey everybody, Dave from Awful Commentary here. We're going to leave it there for part 1 of our discussion on The Mandalorian, but please do come back next week where we'll be delving a bit more into season 2. But until then, stay safe and have a Merry Christmas. Bye. Hey, what's up everyone? This is Dave from Awful Commentary. We decided to... No. But please do come back next week where we'll be dropping part 2. But please do come back for episode... Hi everybody, Dave from Awful Commentary here. Shit.